Thank you, Mr. King.
Got to lighten up a little bit.
Carry on. Thank you, Mr. King. Good luck tomorrow. Good evening again, everyone. The mayor of New Orleans, who yesterday issued a desperate SOS, today said his city is holding on by a thread. The time has run out. Can we survive another night, he asked. And who can we depend on? God only knows. That was earlier today as help was finally beginning to arrive in a city underwater before the president's plane had touched down. It's impossible to say what night will bring to New Orleans. Today brought some progress and also some new problems. This was the city before Katrina hit. And here's how it looks now. All the smoke you see comes from fires that broke out just today. There was a huge explosion at a factory as well. Fighting fires in a flooded city is not easy, to say the least. Some of these fires are impossible to reach. And it's not just in New Orleans, it's in the neighboring parishes as well. And then there is this. Police officers are walking off the job by the dozens. Those who haven't walked off say they can't do their job. They're outnumbered, and they can't help people who are shooting at them. There are still patients trapped in hospitals and at the convention center. It is still a mess there. What tonight will bring is anyone's guess. This is the day in broad strokes. Today, 5 days after the storm, 4 days after it was clear the situation was truly desperate, help finally did arrive in New Orleans.
So shortly, we'll start issuing water and food, and then we'll bring the helicopters in and start the medical evacuation of those that need to be taken to the hospitals immediately.
50 trucks, food, medicine, water, security, hope. But for many still, too little, too late. They have seen too much, been overwhelmed for too long, heard far too many promises.
And I don't want to see anybody do any more goddamn press conferences. Don't do another press conference until the resources are in this city. And then come down to this city and stand with us when there are military trucks and troops that we can't even count. Don't tell me 40,000 people are coming here. They're not here.
The president, whose administration is receiving withering criticism for its response so far, called the results to date inadequate. He has been personally criticized as well for showing too little leadership. But today he was on the ground in Alabama and Mississippi. He was on to New Orleans, doing the things that presidents do in times like this. But he also did not see the full scope of the anarchy that has captured the city.
I'm not going to forget what I've seen. I understand the devastation requires more than one day's attention. It's going to require the attention of this country for a long period of time.
The mayor said today that 90% of this city is now out of commission. 10,000 people were evacuated yesterday, he said, but 50,000 people still remain. Perhaps no place is worse than the city's convention center, neglected by almost every agency, local, state, and federal, public and private, for a week. Unsafe for the people there, unsafe even for the police trying to take it back.
We have like what I would call modern-day genocide going on. They more or less corralled us in two places, the convention center and the Superdome, with no food, no water. You can say almost 90-degree heat inside. We have small children and sick and elderly people dying every day, small children being raped and killed, people running around with guns. I'm scared for my life, my wife, and my 5-year-old daughter's life.
So when the convoy of supplies and soldiers arrived today, the good people inside the convention center, if not the thugs, cheered.
The crowd erupted. I mean, clapping, crying, people shouting, hooray. They were ecstatic. It's like 7,000 people out in dire conditions. I'm actually sitting outside. I'm watching all the National Guard and all the police presence that we haven't had in 5 days out here. I mean, it's amazing. They're coming full force. They're bringing food, they're bringing water, and they're bringing a lot of hope.
The Superdome is only better by degree, buses moving people out to shelters in Texas. But in the perfect metaphor for the failures of the relief efforts so far, buses last night were turned away from the Astrodome in Houston. It was already too crowded. The evacuation remains painfully slow. The sick and the injured being moved out first, 800 people an hour, treated at field hospitals set up at the airport. Many flown on to San Antonio. More choppers made it possible for the Coast Guard to increase air and water rescues, and by late today, over 7,000 people had been lifted one way or another to safety. So a week after this awful storm and the floods that followed, there is at least the hint that a corner has been turned. But at what cost? After a week where the country has seen images like this, where people have experienced life like this.
You just had to fight for your life. People looting, stealing things, shooting in the air, everything. You had to fight for your life. You couldn't do nothing.
All you can say today, and it is something, is that things are better. The broad strokes of the day will start focusing in a bit now on the convention center first. The convention center story, in some respects, did seem to creep up on people. Clearly, it had been going on since Monday, but it didn't really come to attention until Wednesday. And yesterday, just yesterday, the FEMA director, Mike Brown, said he had first heard of it. Jeff Kanangi is there for us tonight. Jeff, is there evidence that the supplies that came in today have gotten to the people who need them, that the place is calmer now than it was 24 hours ago?
You know what, Aaron? It depends on who you ask. If you ask the people at the convention center, they'll tell you it's too little, too late. Because what we saw, Aaron, is like walking into a refugee camp in a third world country. The stench, the smells, the sights, the sounds, the numbers. Even the soldiers on the ground, Aaron, the only thing that was missing was the aid workers. The people there are frustrated, as you can imagine, after 5 days, and they're blaming everyone from the government to the president for letting this situation become so catastrophic, Aaron.
Okay, I understand that, and I think we all appreciate that. I think what we're trying to sort out tonight, Jeff, is whether or not progress has been made, which is to say, look, you can't give them back these last 4 days of hell that they have lived through. What I want to know is there water, is there food, and are they getting them out?
Well, what we saw was the soldiers, the National Guard, distributing MREs, meals ready to eat, and a bottle of water for every person. When we asked the people, we overheard some of the people, refugees, asking soldiers, how often is this going to happen? He got a blank stare in return. We don't know whether this will continue into a second day. What has changed, though, Aaron, is that the situation is a lot calmer there. You could not be here where we're standing 24 hours ago. You couldn't walk into the convention center at the same time today. So again, it is improving. There's some people doing some great work out there, Aaron.
All right, Jeff, thank you very much. Jeff Kanangi, who is at the convention center, at various points, there are probably 20,000 people, 15,000 people at the convention center, and in some respects it was at least in terms of where a mass of people had congregated, the most out of control, the most violent, the most hopeless in many respects, because it got the least attention. Even the police, who were brought in at one point, 88 of them yesterday, to try and restore order, were pushed back. And so this mess went on all day yesterday and all night as well. 5 days of combat, essentially, it seemed like, at the convention center. CNN's Chris Lawrence spent last night with the police in New Orleans downtown and filed this report.
Police officers under siege in New Orleans prepared to defend their station.
I don't know too much about the rest of the districts. I only know what goes on here, and it's been hell.
Officers being shot at continuously. Same thing every day. People want help. We try to help them. We don't get there fast enough, so they shoot.
With the city in chaos, an officer delivers this message home.
I just want to tell my wife I love her. Her name is Rachel Weatherly. Rachel Weatherly. I love her. I love you.
The police are undermanned and often overwhelmed.
I want to have something to say, and if y'all can get it out, I want you to get it out to them. All the cowards that are here on the New Orleans Police Department that fled this city in a time of need, when you raised your right hand, you were sworn to protect these citizens.
Police say a third of the force deserted after the hurricane.
for all you cowards that's supposed to wear the badge. Can you truly wear the badge like our motto say? Evidently you can't.
Anybody up on the roof on me? It's pitch black when they take their posts.
We got guys out here, shooting at the police. Like I said, raping kids and women.
One officer compares the catastrophe to September 11th.
I think just the number of people dead is going to be worse. And we're not going to...
We just heard a gunshot. We were just talking to one of the officers, and just like that, you heard a gunshot just go off, aim somewhere near us. It's hard to even tell where he was aiming.
That was early on. This came later.
We had 3 people shooting at us from the project. I picked up the flash on the last shot, and I put about 5 shots over there and quieted down.
Just as the night winds down, a chemical fire explodes off in the distance.
I'm getting everybody off the roof, getting them downstairs, and that's about all we can do right now until we get further orders.
Finally, the sun rises through the smoke, and police offer some perspective on Hurricane Katrina.
I don't think the real story is finished yet. This is only part 1. Part 2 is where we are right now, dealing with all of this. The aftermath in the city with the flooding, with the looting, with the killing, with the raping. Part 3, that's the story that isn't finished yet. What's going to happen to the city? We're going to rebuild.
Questions right now with no answers.
We will survive, I know that, but we need to do more than that. We need to go back to living with faith and with hope and even with compassion for some of the people who didn't have any for us.
Chris Lawrence, CNN, New Orleans.
It was last night, being a New Orleans police officer, a friend, someone I know quite well. A friend isn't quite the right word, but someone I know really well, told me today that she didn't sleep all last night, that this scene of New Orleans kept playing back on her. And I suspect a lot of people around the country felt that way. The president got to the region. He was in Alabama, Mississippi, and New Orleans today. It's important. These are important moments for presidents. They're important things to do. At the same time, no president could ever be exposed to, for security reasons, if no other, exposed to the kinds of things that Chris Lawrence was just reporting on. How do you expose the president of the United States to anarchy? You can show him houses that have been blown over. And they did today, and promises can be made and should be made, but the real depths of what has gone on, and the horror of what has gone on in New Orleans, you literally can't show. It doesn't mean he doesn't know or can't be briefed or can't watch TV and get it, but you can't show it to him, not in the flesh. Anyway, he was in Biloxi, Mississippi, among other places today, and among the people he met were the Bassirs, Kim Bassir and Bronwyn Bassir, and they join us now. Well, it must have been, I don't make this a small deal. You met the President of the United States today. What did you say to him, Kim?
He was just extremely calm. He just reassured us. He was in his eyes. You could see that this was coming from his heart. He just reassured us that help us on the way. He gave us some advice as to where for the distribution sites and where we could possibly get some food and clothes. And he was relaxed the whole time, and he just focused and reassured us that the people would come together and help.
Let me ask your mom a question here. Before you met with the president today, and our viewers are seeing that now. Before that, were you a little angry with the government and how the government had responded?
Now let me just correct you. This is my sister.
I'm sorry.
And that's okay. But no, I wasn't angry at the situation because I knew eventually they will eventually help us in some sort of way. And like my sister said, he did reassure us that things were going to happen. And I can see that they are happening because I'm in Gauche, and every day there's people there giving us water and giving us ice and telling us that everything is going to be okay. Like today, Pascagoula and Ocean Springs got electricity, and they said it's just a matter of hours before Gauche gets electricity too.
So the situation for you in Biloxi isn't comparable, is it, to the situation for the people in New Orleans? Have you been able to follow that part of the story at all? Are you aware of what it's been like there?
Well, today the only reason why I came to Biloxi was because I needed to get some clothes for my son and clothes for myself because I don't have any clothes, and you know, I just needed to see if I can salvage something down there. But walking around, people don't have no water, they still don't have no lights in Biloxi, so it's just complete darkness, you know. No one has anything.
Well, hopefully, to both of you, hopefully, and everyone else, that the President's visit today will help speed up the recovery. Thanks for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Coming up on the program, the frantic fight to save the sick at Charity Hospital, this has gone on really since Tuesday, trying to get people out of that hospital. First at just a little past a quarter past the hour, Erica Hill joins us. Tomorrow, the newspaper in New Orleans, I'm not sure exactly who's going to get it. We'll find out in a second. The Times-Picayune will publish. Here's the headline that people will see tomorrow. First water, now fire blazes turn parts of besieged city into the inferno. Jim Amos is the editor, and he's on the phone with us. Before I get to him, here's the lead that the paper will carry tomorrow. New Orleans, or what's left of it, awoke Friday to discover that fire has been added to the array of pestilences, floodwaters, hunger, looting, and mass death. Jim Amos, the editor of the paper. Have you been publishing online up to this point?
We have since Tuesday's edition of the paper, which was the first online edition. Last night was our first print publication.
Is it a huge marker in some sense for the paper to get? And does it tell us anything about the situation on the ground, honestly, that the paper is publishing?
Well, the fact that the paper is publishing, I think, is a testament to the hunger of its readers, and we experienced it firsthand when we distributed the first print product post-hurricane this morning to people in shelters. And as our circulation director said, they accepted it, they grabbed for it almost as if it were food.
They've been in many cases, without any good information about anything beyond their immediate surroundings, haven't they?
They have indeed, but there is good information emanating from New Orleans, in the sense that some of the acts of incredible humanity that are manifested by the people and that we've written about, and I think our readers need to know about them, and we've provided them.
I agree. I worry sometimes that we all lose the balance a little bit on that. Just one other question before we let you go. Was there, at some level, a temptation to headline, "We tried to warn you," because the paper, in fact, 3 years ago, laid this all out?
It did indeed, in a series about the erosion of the coastline and the barrier islands and the increased vulnerability of the city. But people don't want to hear those messages necessarily, and bureaucracies are not built to respond to them very nimbly. And the political will just isn't there. So I think that the series it had some results, but not the kind of result that could have lessened this disaster.
Your family okay?
Thank you for asking. Yes, indeed. My entire extended family is okay, and that's the main thing.
That is the main thing. We appreciate your time and the work the paper has done and continues to do. We'll check some other papers in a moment. Well, One more newspaper as we approach the top of the hour. This is the New York Daily News, okay? One of the two tabloids in town. I guess there are three. Shame on us. The news says it is absolutely outrageous that the United States of America could not bring comfort to tens of thousands of forlorn, frightened, sick, and hungry souls earlier than it did. Who is at fault for what is nothing less than a national scandal. I wonder if it'll become a national scandal or if we'll kind of blithely move on and say, well, they're getting help now, everybody tried their hardest, whatever. Shame on us, the headline in the Daily News. We'll recap the day at the top of the hour. We've got another full hour to go. This is a special edition of Newsnight.